You guys always seem to appreciate my chest tube walkthrough, so let's do one together. Chest tubes are one of those things that are really kind of confusing. They also can be intimidating, especially if you don't work with them that often. I think having a video like this that kind of walks through all the different components can be very helpful if you feel maybe like you just need a little more practice. This is a dry suction chest tube atrium. This is pretty standard for most hospitals. There may be a couple different versions out there, but for the most part, this is what you're going to see. This chest tube atrium can be hooked up to suction, which would be plugged in right up there, and you would connect it to your wall suction. It doesn't really matter what the wall suction is. You can turn it all the way up because you're going to control the actual suction of the chamber right here. There's actually a little nozzle on the side here that you can turn, and it'll adjust this little wheel to -20, -30, -40, or -10. If you disconnect the suction, then essentially your chest tube is to water seal or just to gravity. I'm trying to throw all the terms in there because there's so many different ones with chest tubes, it gets confusing. In order to know that your suction is working, you need to look right here. This is called the bellows. And when your suction is hooked up, your bellows will be inflated out like this. If you were to disconnect the suction, these bellows would essentially disappear. You wouldn't even really be able to see them. When your chest tube kit comes in the little packaging, you should have a little water seal blue water vial, and you're going to have to add that in to your chest tube kit. This is the water seal chamber right here, and in order to add the water into there, you actually put it through the suction chamber. I know that's confusing. There is a pamphlet that comes with the packaging if you don't remember where to put it. When you look in your water seal chamber, you should be able to see a couple things. There's a little white ball. I actually can't really see it on here, but there's a little white ball that goes right here. And when your patient is breathing, you should be able to see some sort of titling, meaning that this little white ball correlates with respirations and should kind of move up and down. Sometimes it's just very subtle. Sometimes it can be pretty drastic. But if that ball is not moving, then I would question if our chest tube was in the right spot or if it was kinked somewhere. You may also see bubbling in this chamber. Bubbling means one thing, that there is air getting into the system. This air can be expected. Maybe the patient had a pneumothorax. We put in a chest tube. Now that air is escaping into the chest tube kit, and so you'll see more frequent bubbling. It could also mean that you have a leak somewhere in your chest tube drainage system. So maybe you need to have the connection secured. Maybe there's a small hole somewhere. So you'll have to take a look at your whole chest tube kit from the insertion point all the way up to where it is connected to make sure there's no leaks. You may also see intermittent bubbling if your patient were to give a big cough, you have a big position change, etc. Over here is our drainage chamber. So your drainage will actually start into this column here. And once it goes all the way up to 200, it'll start to spill over into this column and so on and so forth. So we hooked up your suction to this component right here. This portion right here is what hooks up to the actual chest tube that was inserted into the patient. Because your chest tube is inserted under a sterile procedure, you want to make sure you keep the end of this sterile when you're going to connect it to the actual chest tube. And that is essentially our chest tube walkthrough. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want some more troubleshooting tips for the different types of air leaks, etc.